Well, you already know my name, but for the audience, my name is Shaim, and I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, I'm Layla. I am a psychology student at Spelman College, and I'm a Spanish minor. I'm 20 years old, and I'm Shame's longtime friend.
Thank you. So I was just gonna ask you a couple questions, and my first one is going to be, where do you see yourself in terms of society's scale of skin tone, and do you think you're perceived the same or differently by others?
Um, in society's like scale of skin tone, I would like place myself at a pretty light complexion, like yeah, like light skin probably. And I feel like I'm perceived differently by people. I feel like there's not really a general consensus.
Do you think different races perceive you differently? Like, do white people perceive you one way, black people perceive you a different way?
I definitely do. I think with black people can tell that I'm black. Like black people know that I am a black woman. So I don't really have to worry about being around black people and having like, my race being questioned really. But like when I'm around white people, some white people will just like ask and like ask me what my race is, or like it kind of feels like they don't know but they don't want to assume or ask, so they just are confused about it. But I definitely feel like white people compared to black people, white people have a harder time figuring out what my racial background is.
Hmm. Um, and so do you think that this perception, as well as your own self perception, have had a positive or negative impact um, on your life?
I would say probably both, like, or usually it's like a double-edged sword. Like I know one, like on the one hand, I definitely benefit from light skin privilege,
Hmm.
because I feel like I my like not facial features, but my skin tone kind of puts me closer in proximity to whiteness. And I definitely feel like in society I do get like treated a little, I would say like not a little, but like pretty differently compared to like someone who you could tell is black, or at least white people could tell is black. And it's just affected me negatively though. Like I know, like in, like, I guess an outside perspective, it's like, oh well, I'm not getting treated badly, or I'm getting treated with like a little bit more respect than another black person would. But like for me, like, on the inside perspective of that, like, I guess on a person of color and a black person perspective on that is like, well, I wouldn't like, we should all be treated like with the same amount of respect. And like, I know that me having my light skin privilege, or like when that comes into play, I know that someone will always be at a disadvantage because of it. And it's also just given me like certain kind of identity, um, like times where I question my identity a lot because of that, like sort of different type, not treatment, but just like of how I'm perceived, like that different perception of me compared to other people in my race.
Right. Um, do you feel like it has been the way that you're perceived by white people? Do you feel like it's been that perception makes it easier or harder for you to maneuver in white spaces?
Um, I feel like in like, I guess like in like an outside point of view, like in a simple black and white point of view, like it would, but I genuinely think a lot of that boils down to how you act around white people, like how you can maneuver. Like it really comes down to, you know, it does make it easier, but like it doesn't necessarily make or break me, because you just have to like know how to act around white people, being a black person or a person of color. So it does help in a sense, like it makes things easier for me, but I still feel like, you know, just me being me, I would have to just know how I should be acting and like just code switch and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And like, so you said that you have to know how to act around white people. Do you feel like you're afforded more of a, not like a pass, but like you're cut slack because, in terms of like being on the lighter end of the spectrum?
I definitely do. Because I feel like because of that, like I'm not stereotyped as much or as easily. Um, I've just like noticed, like growing up in a predominantly white space, like I feel like if you are, I guess, perceived differently, like if you're on the lighter end versus like whether you're darker, you know, people are going to make it easier or just not have those walls as built up, because I genuinely feel like, you know, when white people are confused and don't know what I am, they can't form those stereotypes about me because they
Mm,
don't know which ones to apply. Rather, like if I feel like I was darker skinned, definitely, like, you know, they would already assume, like they would know like, oh, this is a black girl, like, and then just already have those stereotypes in their head. But I feel like being on the lighter end of that, um it's different. There is not as harsh, or they're not as bad, I guess, because I definitely feel like being a light skinned person, and even if I was like dark skinned, I would still, you'd be able to tell the difference between how white people treat lighter skinned or like darker skinned people. And you would think that that like wouldn't be a thing that matters at all, but it does. And
mm-hmm.
yeah.
That is a very point that you made about like they're confused, not confused, but it's harder for them to really put a stereotype onto you because they don't know exactly what you are. That was a very good point. But
Mm-hmm.
along the lines of the stereotyping, how have you experienced, what stereotypes have you experienced from white people or even from black people?
um when like when I was younger, I went to a predominantly black school. So, like, I guess not a stereotype, but I guess people kind of expected me, or like, not expected me, but I was kind of, I've always been like a weird kid. But in like elementary school, like, everybody would call me white girl because like there were no white girls and I was the lightest one there. And like, not that that's ever really been an issue. I've never really taken offense to those jokes, but I feel like it's definitely more excused of me to be weird when I'm around black people. Or like, I also heard like from older black people growing up that like, you know, they would make jokes about me being bougie and like stuck up and everything. Um, which that always, yeah, that just really shows like, because it came from older black people, so it's just really like a, you know, very older type stereotype, hearing that from them. But I haven't really heard that from like younger people. But like, it's crazy because it really shows like, I feel like saying stuff like that really shows your age, because you're equating my proximity to whiteness to like me being bougie and stuck up. But like at the end of the day, like I'm still black. And like from white people, I don't really know. I feel like white people have never explicitly like shown their stereotypes, but like you can tell what they think of you. Like I definitely feel like white people probably expect me to be like at least when I was younger, just like kind of more, not ghetto, but like I guess ghetto to them. I don't know, just loud, um, loud, angry black girl type thing.
Mm-hmm. Um, so I guess along the lines of that, do you feel like, because back in the day, like I read an article um called "The Paperback Principle of the Myth and the Motion of Colorism," and it was basically about how back in the day they used to use tests like something like the paper bag test to either validate or invalidate people's proximity to whiteness. So do you feel
Mhm.
like, obviously those tests aren't used now overtly, but do you feel like your proximity to whiteness has been validated or invalidated?
Um, I Yeah, I do feel like my proximity to whiteness has been validated because cuz like what you said about the paper bag test, like my dad used to make jokes, or like not make jokes but make light of it cuz he would educate me about that from like a pretty young age. And just like now you hear about things like about how rappers talk about how they don't want um big girls or like dark skinned girls like in their sections at clubs and stuff like that. So, and you see that a lot, and you see it in media and music videos, like the type of women that are put up on pedestals and media and all that stuff, and people just blatantly stating what they do and what they don't like. I definitely feel like my proximity to whiteness has been validated, or not whiteness but at least to otherness, like something other than black, because I see a lot of people like kind of just validate like racial ambiguity and proximity to whiteness, or just whiteness period.
Hmm. Um, so I read another study that talked about, called the development and validation of a colorism scale, and that one was kind of about how it was basically about the attractiveness of a person based on their skin tone. And I know I've seen, and like you brought up, like rappers or even like regular people kind of associate lighter skin with being more attractive. Do you feel like you've experienced that? And has it been more negative, more positive?
Mm. I It's funny that you asked that question because I asked that question the other day. And I don't know, like I feel like it's never explicitly been confirmed to me, but at the back of my head I do think a lot about like, am I being validated? Am I like, you know, I feel like I get a lot of compliments, and I feel like a lot of that comes from me just being light skinned. But that also just comes from me, having my own insecurities and like not thinking I'm good enough and everything. But because I'm light skinned, like it just adds another thing to me for me to be concerned about. Like, do you really think I'm attractive? Am I really like all this and everything, or am I just light skinned? And especially because I feel like with my experience with like some white people, I feel like I've been like fetishized for how I look. So I definitely feel like there are times where like, yes, I do feel like um I'm sorry, I forgot what I was saying.
You were talking about how you feel like white people fetishize you um, because of your likeness.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was the
yeah.
question again?
um, do you feel like your skin tone has played a role in how attractive people view you?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. So that's what I was saying. Yeah, I feel like I've been fetishized by white people. So they probably think I'm attractive just because of my skin color. And then um and also my experience with like, some black people as well. Um I definitely feel like I've been fetishized because of my skin color. So sometimes, going through stuff like that makes you ask yourself, like, am I actually attractive or am I just light skinned? Because, people tend to just only bring up your skin or question, your ethnic background and your racial background. It's kind of just, you feel like a prop or an object rather than a
Mm,
person. Like, if they're basing your attractiveness off that, it kind of feels like they don't see you. So,
hmm.
yes.
And that's interesting because like black people have always been treated in an objectifying manner, whether it was through the enslavement and kind of making them into more of a cattle type thing for labor, but also like black women have always been objectified for their bodies, and like no matter the skin tone, the objectification of black women just runs rampant through our society. But I guess to keep going with the conversation of attraction, there's
Um,
another study or article done, and it's called "The Skin Complexion in the 21st Century: The Impact of Colorism on African American Women, Race, Gender, and Class." So, do you feel like that your gender also plays a role in the amount of attraction that you receive from other people? Like, because you're I'm more racially ambiguous than you, I feel like.
hmm
So it's kind of like you're more clearly black than I am. But do you feel like that because you're a woman and I'm a man, that there's a difference in between how we're perceived in terms of people being attracted to us?
um, yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like, but it's in like different ways. Like, I feel like because I'm a woman, and really just because of my body, honestly, and my autonomy, like, I feel like in attractiveness, I'm probably going to be put higher up on that scale just because women are, because of like sexualization, basically, like, because women are really objectified and sexualized for our bodies. And like, you really don't have to even like, be pretty or like be, I guess, conventionally attractive for that. Like, people just kind of like to use women's bodies. So I would think in that sense, like, because of that, yeah, but also we live in a patriarchy, and like, you being a man definitely like helps. I feel like men are really put on a pedestal also regardless of looks, but that's just because like they're men, whether as women are kind of put on pedestals because of our bodies, and people just want to use them, whether actually versus like, men actually kind of being valued in society because they're a man, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, definitely. Um, do you So I guess to go more into detail, you can share as much or as little detail as you want, but how specifically has your skin tone impacted your romantic life?
um I feel like my skin tone has impacted my romantic life. Like, I definitely feel like because of my skin tone, I've been, um, I don't want to say like pursued, I don't know, just like gotten the attraction, like, or I guess attract like kind of people of like more like, guess, yeah, I just attract more racial diversity, I guess, because, but like, yeah, I think that's because of my skin tone, just because I'm lighter and my proximity to whiteness just kind of puts me up higher in society, because I'm
Hmm.
light skinned. But like, yeah, I feel like it definitely does, you know, help bring more people, but it's attracting like kind of maybe people who are not people who don't have like genuine intentions or genuine attraction. Like I said, like people who just like fetishize you rather than actual people interested in you who just find you attractive. So I've definitely have attracted people who are more on the fetishization side.
And that was gonna be my next question. Like, so you feel like have you ever like found someone to be attracted to you and then realized they were kind of just fetishizing you?
Yes. Um or I guess not I mean, yeah, like times like where I definitely feel like I have been fetishized, and like other times where like because I'm lighter skin, like, if they knew that I was black, that they probably wouldn't have said anything to me in the first place or like approached me in the first place, but because they can't tell or they think I'm like something else other than black, like they did approach me. So a little bit of both.
So it kind of sounds like you're saying that if they knew you were black, so do you feel like black people or white people show more of a attraction to you?
Um, that's
Or
a
is it
good.
kind of equal?
I would say probably equal. Like, I feel like sometimes because I'm like, lighter skin or like I racially ambiguous, it's like I'm not like, yes, I'm black, but like I guess how like people like black features when they're not on black people, or like black people qualities,
Mm,
but when they're not on black people, that's kind of what I feel like when it comes to white people, is like I have all the qualities of a black person, but because I don't necessarily fit the stereotypical, like, phenotype of a black person, it's not, uh, they're more inclined to speak to me. But then with black people know I'm black. Like I feel like I have no issues attracting them, because a lot of people tend to date within their race. But I will say, like, I also have attracted like black people who do fetishize me because I'm light skinned. Like, I guess how like some black men really don't like to date black women and they're very
mm-hmm.
vocal about it, or they're colorist. I definitely will say I feel like I also attract like a lot of colorist black men to myself as well.
And so when you encounter that, do you kind of lose attraction, or you just kind of, what do you do, I guess?
Um Honestly, I will say I do like to kind of start an argument about it first, like kind of like just call them out about it. And then I would say like after that, I never talk to them again, or like I block them, because yeah, I always like to like use my words first and kind of make them see like why what they're saying is wrong, or like try to make them feel bad about it. But I'm not gonna not say anything, because you know whether or not I'm still gonna let you know, because I don't like people thinking that because I'm not whatever you're dissing, that I'm not going to say anything. Like, it doesn't make me feel better because you're dissing someone else. Like, a lot of, just in general with men, they'll like kind of put down other women to compliment you. And I feel like I definitely hear a lot of that with like, colorist men. So it's like I have to say something, because I don't want you thinking that it's okay to say that type of stuff around me just because I'm your preference. And the same like with white men as well. Like, if they say something racist, I feel like being light skinned, a lot of white people feel comfortable saying racist or like kind of controversial things around me, because um I'm racially ambiguous. And again, like I have to say something.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for allowing me to ask you these questions. I have gained a lot of insight. And that will be the end of this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Me too.